A gloomy morning draped Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, in March 2024. With a cloudy sky hanging low over the dusty streets of Saman neighborhood, a quiet outskirts area. Amid the narrow alleys and weathered brick walls, Madame Ada, a 65-year-old woman, sat on the ground, her back against a faded red brick wall. Her white T-shirt was torn, riddled with holes that exposed her wrinkled skin, and her gray hair fell in messy strands. In her hands, she clutched an old, worn notebook, its pages yellowed, its cover stained by time. Yet her eyes sparkled with nostalgia that seemed out of place in her dire circumstances. A few yards away, a military jeep rolled slowly through the streets, part of a routine patrol ordered by Ibrahim Traoré, the interim president of Burkina Faso. Against the security team's advice, Traoré insisted on seeing the city for himself. Peering out the window, he spotted the frail figure against the wall. Something about her face made him pause. "Stop here," he commanded, his deep voice cutting through the jeep's silence. The driver, Captain Ouagadougou, obeyed immediately. Traoré stepped out, his olive-green uniform crisp and commanding, and walked toward the woman, his soldiers keeping a respectful distance. As he drew closer, he noticed a notebook in her hands, and his heart skipped a beat. "Madame Ada?" he asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper, recognizing the aged face of the teacher who had taught him to read and write decades ago. She looked up, confusion clouding her expression, until a spark of recognition lit her eyes. "Ibrahim? Ibrahim Traoré?" she croaked, her voice hoarse but filled with emotion. She tried to stand, but her legs buckled. Traoré quickly knelt, helping her steady herself against the wall. "Yes, it's me," he confirmed, his gaze locked on her. "What are you doing here like this?" Ada gripped the notebook tighter, her fingers trembling. "I've kept it all these years," she said, opening it to reveal childish handwriting. The name, Ibrahim Traoré, was scrawled in uneven letters. "It was yours from when you were 8. I always knew you'd do great things." A tear rolled down her cheek, and Traoré felt a lump in his throat as memories flooded back. The gray morning weighed heavily on Ouagadougou as Traoré knelt beside Madame Ada in the dusty alley of Saman. The notebook in her hands trembled, its faded pages stirring memories of coup, a dirt-floored classroom, literacy lessons, and Ada's patient voice guiding him as he learned to write his name. Traoré gently took the notebook, his fingers tracing the crooked letters he'd written as a child. "You kept this all this time?" he asked, his eyes misty. Ada nodded, a faint smile breaking through her weathered face. "You were special, Ibrahim. I always knew you'd go far. When I saw you on TV as president, I cried with pride." She lowered her gaze, embarrassed. "But look at me now. I have nothing left." Her voice trailed off as she wiped a tear with her torn sleeve. Traoré's heart sank. He glanced around at the littered alley, the scattered debris, the poverty surrounding his former teacher. "What happened, madam?" he asked, his tone softer. "You gave me so much. How did you end up here?" Ada sighed deeply, her eyes distant. "After I retired, my husband passed away. My children moved to Europe. But I never heard from them again. I lost my house to debts, and I've been on the streets for 3 years." She clutched the notebook to her chest. "This is all I have left from a time when I had a purpose." Traoré felt a mix of guilt and gratitude tighten his chest. He stood, his jaw clenched, and turned to Ouagadougou, who stood nearby. "Bring her food and water," he ordered, his voice firm but laced with emotion. The captain nodded and hurried to the jeep. Traoré knelt again. "You won't stay here, Madame Ada," he said resolutely. "Not after what you did for me." She looked at him, confused. "I don't want charity," she whispered, pride still flickering in her voice. He shook his head. "This isn't charity. It's what I owe you." He took her hand, his eyes shining. "Come with me." As the gray morning began to lift in Ouagadougou, faint rays of sunlight broke through the clouds. In the alley, Traoré helped Madame Ada to her feet, the old notebook still in her hands. Ouagadougou returned with a bottle of water and a bag of bread, handing them to Ada, who hesitated before accepting. "Thank you," she murmured, sipping slowly, her eyes fixed on Traoré, still in disbelief. "You're coming with me," Traoré repeated, his tone firm but kind. He motioned to Sawadogo. Help her into the jeep. Ada protested weakly. Ibrahim, I can't. Look at me, I'm filthy. I have nothing. He stopped her, placing a hand on her shoulder. You have more than you think, madam. You gave me a future. Now it's my turn. Sawadogo supported her as she climbed into the jeep, while Traore tucked the notebook into his uniform pocket. That's all I can give you for now, he said with a faint smile, but you'll have a place to keep it again. Ada settled into the vehicle, her frail body trembling, but her eyes glowed with a hope she hadn't felt in years. Inside the jeep, Traore sat beside her, the scent of dust and sweat mingling with the memories the notebook evoked. Let's go to the base first, he told Sawadogo, who was driving. I want her to have hot food, clean clothes, and see a doctor. The captain nodded but asked softly, And then, Mr. President? Traore gazed out the window as the city rolled by. After, she'll have a home and a purpose again. Ada listened, tears silently falling. Why are you doing this, Ibrahim? She asked, her voice fragile. He turned to her, his eyes intense. Because you taught me how to read, how to write, how to dream. Without you, I wouldn't be who I am. Burkina owes you as much as it owes me. He squeezed her hand. You'll never sleep on the streets again. The jeep drove on, leaving the alley behind as whispers spread among the neighbors. The president took the old woman with a notebook. A boy said, running to tell others. The story of Ada and Traore began to ripple through the city, a quiet whisper of hope. The sun started to warm Ouagadougou that March morning as the jeep pulled into a military base on the city's outskirts. Madam Ada, sitting beside the president, held the water bottle with trembling hands, still stunned by the sudden change. Traore stepped out first, opening the door for her. Come, madam, he said gently, offering his hand. Sawadogo followed, carrying out orders as soldiers at the base paused, surprised to see their president with an elderly woman in tattered clothes. Traore ignored their stares, leading Ada to a small cafeteria. Sit here, he said, pulling out a chair. He called to an officer. Bring hot food, rice, sauce, whatever you have, and clean clothes for her. The officer nodded and hurried off. Ada sat, her eyes lowered, embarrassed. Ibrahim, I don't deserve this, she murmured. I was your teacher, but now I'm nothing. Traore knelt beside her, his gaze unwavering. You're not nothing. You're the woman who gave me wings, and now you'll fly again. He took the notebook from his pocket and placed it on the table. Look at what you kept. It made me who I am. A cook brought a steaming plate of rice with peanut sauce, and Ada ate slowly, the taste bringing tears to her eyes. Her first warm meal in months. Traore watched, his chest tight with emotion. A military doctor arrived to examine her. She's malnourished, Mr. President, the doctor said after checking her vitals. But with rest and food, she'll recover. Traore nodded, satisfied. I want her to stay here today. Give her a room, a bath, everything she needs. He turned to Ada, who had finished eating. Rest, madam. Tomorrow we start again. She looked at him, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Ibrahim. I never thought I'd see you like this. A leader with a heart. He smiled, a rare softness in his expression. You taught me to have a heart. He stood, leaving her with the doctor, but took the notebook with him, a reminder of what he still owed her. The afternoon unfolded in Ouagadougou, the sun now shining brightly on the military base. Madam Ada rested after a warm shower, dressed in a simple blue tunic provided by the soldiers. She slept in a small room, her first peaceful sleep in years. Meanwhile, in the control room, Traore held the old notebook, its yellowed pages open on the table. He read his own childish handwriting, memories that could play like a film in his mind. Ada's lessons, her patience, her encouragement to dream big. Sawadogo entered with a report. She's fine, Mr. President, he said. The doctor says she needs care, but she'll recover. Traore nodded, his eyes still on the notebook. Good, but it's not enough. She gave me everything. Now I'll give her life. He closed the notebook with resolve. I want a house for her, Sawadogo, simple but dignified, in a safe neighborhood. And a job, something to make her feel useful again. Sawadogo hesitated. A job? She's weak, Mr. President. Traore's gaze was firm. She's a teacher. She can teach again, even if it's just a few kids. It'll give her purpose. He tapped the table. I want this done quickly. The house ready in a week. Speak to the local council. Find her a space to teach. The captain nodded, noting the orders. And the costs? He asked cautiously. Traore shook his head. I'll pay from my own pocket if needed. This isn't politics, it's personal. He slipped the notebook back into his pocket. I'll go see her now. I want her to know what's coming. In Ada's room, she awoke, her eyes clearer after her rest. Traore entered and sat beside her. How do you feel, madam? He asked gently. She smiled weakly. Like I'm dreaming, Ibrahim. He took her hand. It's not a dream. You'll have a home, and you'll teach again, but better. Ada's eyes widened, tears welling up. Teach? Can I still? Traore nodded. Yes, and I'll be there to help you start. A week later. The late afternoon of March 2024 brought a light breeze to Ouagadougou as Traore accompanied Madame Ada to a modest neighborhood a few kilometers from the military base. The house he'd ordered was ready, a simple brick building with a tin roof, a living room, a bedroom, and a small garden. Ada, now in new clothes and looking healthier after days of care, walked beside him, leaning on Sawadogo's arm. Her eyes sparkled with disbelief when she saw the house. This is yours, madam, Traore said, handing her the key. Here, you'll live with dignity. Ada took the key with trembling hands and stepped inside, touching the clean floor of her bare rooms. Ibrahim, I have no words, she murmured, tears flowing as she looked at the basic furniture. A bed, a table, chairs in the corner. Traore placed the old notebook on the table. Now you have a place to keep it, he said with a smile. But his plan didn't end there. He led her to a nearby community school, where the local council, at his request, had set up a small classroom. 10 children, aged 6 to 8, sat at makeshift desks with new notebooks donated by the base. Madam, Ada will teach you again, Traore announced, his voice firm. It starts with them, and over time, more will come. Ada stood still, her heart racing. Teach again? She asked, her voice breaking. She looked at the children, who gazed at her with curiosity. An old strength surged within her. She picked up a piece of chalk, her hands trembling, and wrote ABC on the board. The children repeated in unison, and she smiled, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Ibrahim, she said, turning to him. You've given me my life back. Traore, standing at the door, felt his eyes water. No, madam, you gave me mine a long time ago. This is just the beginning. He looked at the children, his tone firm. Study hard, okay? One day, you'll change Burkina Faso, just like she changed me. The children nodded, their eyes bright, as Ada wiped away a tear. By the end of March 2024, a new energy had taken root in the neighborhood where Madame Ada now lived and taught. Her small brick house became a landmark, and the community school began to draw more children, growing from 10 to 15, all eager to learn from the president's teacher. Ada, in simple but clean clothes, wrote on the board with renewed confidence. The old notebook, now kept on a shelf, stood as a symbol of Traore's journey. At the military base, Traore received updates from Sawadogo. The school is in session, Mr. President, the captain said, handing over photos of the children with Ada. She's doing well. The doctor says her health improves daily. Traore looked at the photos, a rare smile forming. Good. I want this to grow. More teachers, more classrooms. Let's make this an example for the country. News of Traore's gesture spread through Ouagadougou. At the central market, vendors buzzed. He found his teacher on the street, gave her a home, and now she's teaching again, a woman with a basket said. The story aired on local radio, inspiring others to support their communities, a ripple of hope spreading outward. Traore visited Ada again, stepping into the classroom as she taught the children to read. They recognized him and cheered, President, in unison. He waved back. Ada stopped, smiling, and turned to him with gratitude. Ibrahim, look at what you've done, she said, pointing to the students. You've given me a purpose again. He placed a hand on her shoulder. You gave me mine, madam, many years ago. This is just the beginning. He addressed the children once more. Study hard, okay? One day, you'll change Burkina Faso just like she changed me. The children nodded, their eyes shining. As Ada wiped away another tear, Traore left, the notebook still in his pocket, a reminder what the past can teach and what the future can hold. What do you think about this story of hope and gratitude? Share your thoughts in the comments below.